Joining me now, former Florida Congressman and MSNBC political analyst Carlos Curbelo, and my friend Angela Rye, host of On One with Angela Rye. Congressman Curbelo, very happy to have you back on the show. I'm really interested in your perspective on this because I think as we maneuver through Capitol Hill, I have to say, I've covered politics for over 20 years now. I don't recall this pressure to be bipartisan when Republicans controlled Congress. Has that been your experience, and why do you think there's such a push to be bipartisan with people who are clearly still remain faithful to the MAGA crowd?
Well, Tiffany, there's always a group of members in Congress who really believe in bipartisanship. They're usually swing district Republicans and Democrats, swing state Republicans and Democrats. And the reason a lot of times that these members don't get a whole lot of attention or you don't hear about their efforts is because the Congress is rarely evenly divided enough for them to be a major factor. That's obviously not the case in the Senate right now. The Senate is divided 50-50, with Democrats having a tie-breaking vote in Vice President Harris, but senators like Kyrsten Sinema, Joe Manchin, and even Republicans like Susan Collins and Mitt Romney do have a lot of influence and say in a Senate that's so evenly divided. So that's why you're hearing so much about it these days, because a small number of senators or House members, in this case as well, can make a big difference.
They can make a big difference, Angela, but the question is, when you prioritize bipartisanship over the people, who wins and who loses?
Well, it's clear, Tiff, that the people will always lose on that side. As soon as the former congressman was just talking, I thought about this moment. It was the first time I was ever on the House floor when I worked on the Hill. And I remember Rahm Emanuel going up behind Congressman Clyburn when he was the majority whip when Democrats took over the last time in 2011. And I remember Rahm Emanuel saying to this member of Congress, I won't say the member, I will, it was Congressman Carney at the time, and he came up right after Congressman Clyburn's team was whipping the votes to make sure that we would all be in alignment, that all the members with voting cards would vote, the Democratic members would vote together. And Rahm Emanuel looked at this man and he said, no, you vote your conscience. You vote your conscience. And I was so shook by that, Tip, because part of it was the historic nature of Congressman Clyburn and the undermining, the very blatant undermining of this Black man in congressional leadership. Why am I bringing that up right now? Well, what we've seen from the Democratic Party for months now in this Congress, and of course before, is that there's always this bending to the will of people who are Republican light. And what that means is the people that look like all of us on this panel today often go with our needs critically unmet. And then we have to rely on the courts. And we know the current state of the courts, even in the highest court of the land. And so the biggest losers are the people who have the most to gain from the political process because they can't find their power anywhere else. And we need to be able to stand together and count on the courageous people that we thought we were voting for. And that's what I think really has to shift in this Congress for us to get our needs met.
Yeah, and it's honestly very frustrating, Angela. So, Congressman, I know you still talk to Republicans on Capitol Hill. I'm just curious your thought on the effort. So I take your point what you were saying earlier about bipartisanship and that these few senators get a lot of attention. But when bipartisanship really does sacrifice people who look like you, who look like me and Angela, I mean, should that really be the priority, particularly when a lot of these folks are sympathizers to insurrectionists? They're liars. And this isn't something new. This isn't something that was born in the Trump era, but certainly the Trump era punctuated it. Where are you on that?
Well, Tiffany, I think this is a good point. Bipartisanship shouldn't be an end. It should be a means to good, durable policy. And I think that's the point a lot of these senators were making when they came together for this infrastructure deal. Policy that is made on a bipartisan basis tends to be durable. It tends to outlast efforts to undo it or even to extinguish them entirely. I'll give you a great example of bipartisan legislation from when I was in Congress. At the end of 2018, Congress passed the First Step Act, and that was a major bipartisan accomplishment. And obviously that benefited a lot of people of color, people who were languishing in prison needlessly for years. And those reforms really made life better for those people, and I think made us a better country. And because it was done in a bipartisan manner, it's never been attacked again. No one has challenged the changes we made at the end of 2018 with the First Step Act. Now, you take legislation like the Affordable Care Act, for example, the Republican tax cuts of 2017, they were done by one party alone. And guess what? Those policies have been constantly under attack. Democrats right now are likely to try to undo the Republican tax cuts. So that's the theory that a lot of these lawmakers that support bipartisanship hold on to.
Well, Angela, I know you want to get in here. Let me just say that the First Step Act was the First Step Act because the Second Act is needed. That was introduced by Doug Collins, a Trump acolyte, and Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. So, Angela, I want you to go ahead, and then I want to talk about Cory Booker with you because I know you have thoughts on that. But, Angela, go ahead.
Just really quickly, the First Step Act was something that was, most of those policies were folks were trying under the Obama administration to get that passed. And so I would hate to see credit given when it probably should have been given somewhere else. I think the other thing that we should remember is that there are a number of things that were supposed to happen in the First Step Act that have not yet happened. And unfortunately, people see healthcare as a privilege in this country and not a right. And that's the issue with the Affordable Care Act as well.
Absolutely, and I want to stick with you for a second. Congressman, I'm coming back to you, but I want to stick with Angela for a second here. Angela, I want you to take a listen because the Congressman brought up the First Step Act, which obviously dealt a little bit slightly with police reform within the criminal justice system. This is something that's essentially dead right now on Capitol Hill. Take a listen to Cory Booker in his effort to troll Republicans, and I'll get your reaction on the other side.
There's some people who have said that they're members of this deliberative body that wanted to defund the police, to my horror. And now this senator has given us the gift that finally, once and for all, we can put to bed this scurrilous accusation that somebody in this great esteemed body would want to defund the police. So let all of us, 100 people, not walk, but sashay down there and vote for this amendment and put to rest the lies. And I am sure I will see no political ads attacking anybody here over defund the police. And I would ask unanimous consent to add something else to this obvious bill. Can we add also that every senator here wants to defund the police, believes in God, country, and apple pie?
Angela, your thoughts?
Man, you know, I think that we're in such a divided country that this kind of thing doesn't feel satirical at all. It feels like what is required of Democrats to just win their, not even their base, the folks on the fringes. There is a poll that Terrence Woodbury's firm Hit Strategies did on where Black folks stand on defunding the police. Moniker gone wrong? Fine. You don't like the slogan? Fine. But the principle is being able to reimagine a system that actually protects and serves everyone, every single person that pays the salaries of public officials, including law enforcement. That's the truth. That's what we should be saying on the Senate floor. I understand that Cory was using satire. The problem is Black people dying and our ability to live and thrive in this country is not satirical at all. It's not a game. We can't afford to be playing with this. We need to be pushing towards at least considering the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which is a bill that Cory co-authored with Kamala Harris when she was still in the Senate, has not been considered. I understand there are negotiations going on. I'm wondering how much longer, because every single minute is another minute that there's another Black child, another Black person literally in the hands of the police. Police violence is a major human rights issue in this country, and we don't have time for satire. There's no games here. This is all very serious. And unfortunately, he's right. The Republicans have used this slogan to target all kinds of people who are vulnerable in the Senate and the House. Still, there are people who are more vulnerable because their lives are at risk. That's the issue.
Angela brings up a good point, Congressman. I know you want to hop back in here. I just want to toss really quickly. My friend Michael Harriot at The Root brought up a really good point when we come to talk about bipartisanship. And he was responding to Senator Sinema, who said we have more to lose than gain by getting rid of the filibuster. And Michael Harriot asked a poignant question, which I'll ask you both. Who the F word is we? Who is she responding to? Angela makes the point that while we are dying, that people are fighting this slogan instead of actually reimagining policy. So, Congressman, what's your thought there?
Well, Tiffany, I'll go back to the point I made earlier about how we want these policy changes to be durable. We want them to be long lasting. We don't want one party to pass ambitious policy reforms and then have another party come in 2 or 4 years later and sweep it all away. So what senators like Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin and Mitt Romney, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, what they work on every day is how do we make meaningful change? It may not be as ambitious as we want today, but it'll get us closer to our goal. And more importantly, it'll be durable. It won't be swept away with the political tides. So what I think we need for police reform, which is urgently needed, obviously, is for senators like Rob Portman and Kyrsten Sinema and Manchin, who showed so much resolve and persistence and perseverance to get infrastructure done, to get involved with those issues as well and push Republicans and Democrats to get something across the finish line. If we get rid of the filibuster, that means that when Republicans get back in power, they will someday, I don't know if it'll be in 2 years, in 4 years, or in 10 years, then all these policies all of a sudden are at risk. And I don't think any of us want that. Policy needs durable change.
Well, we're way over time, Congressman, so you have to come back. Don't make plans on Saturday. I just want to point out that there were no people of color at the table when negotiating the infrastructure bill, which is, a huge oversight. So, Congressman, don't make plans on Saturday morning, because I always have a lot of questions for you. And Angela, thanks so much for getting up at the crack of dawn to join us.